What's up, everybody? We have another Sarah Boone letter, 58 pages. We're going to read a lot of it, not all of it, and I'll explain why, but it answers a lot of our questions that we have to what does Sarah Boone actually want to accomplish with all of this nonsense? What does she think her lawyer is doing wrong? What arguments does she make to the judge? And what is her fatal flaw in basically all of her arguments? We'll also talk about what we think the judge is going to do based on this 58-page letter. And of course, I can't wait to see and hear your questions and comments throughout this video. Let's get into it. So this is the 58-page letter handed to the judge by Sarah Boone at her last hearing when her and her lawyer were basically arguing back and forth about her lawyer lying, not representing her appropriately, not being nice to her. And then subsequently, her lawyer filed a motion to withdraw. So now we get to see a little more details. What is her lawyer talking about irreconcilable differences? We're going to hear some of that in here. We're also going to hear what Sarah Boone thinks should or should not happen in the future. And the judge has a very difficult decision on his hands. Everybody hit that like button if you wouldn't mind before we start reading this. Helps push the video out there to anybody that may be interested in this Sarah Boone case. And make sure you subscribe. Hit the reminder bell so you don't miss any future videos. This was June 7th. To Judge Kranick from Sarah Boone. Total pages 58. Make sure you don't miss any. So here we go. And by the way, I've only saw like bits and pieces of this, so you're going to see my instant reactions. I did not want to read 58 pages and then read it again here on screen. And by the way, don't settle in too nicely because it's not going to be 58 pages. We're not going to be here for 5 hours reading. I think it's about 15 or 20 pages that we're going to read. The rest, I'll basically summarize what she's trying to do by handwriting everything she did on the last 30 or 40 pages of this document. Ongoing 5 years. Why can't I? She has a certain way of writing, right, that we've seen and come to learn throughout these. And there's a certain part of theatrics or dramatics to the way that she writes, and this letter is no different. Why can't I use my constitutional rights? Am I the only one who cares about the ongoing violations of? So this is her way of kind of guilting or trying to use like reverse psychology on the judges and lawyers. It's like, you guys are supposed to fight for people's constitutional rights. Why aren't you doing that for me? She's trying to use that, manipulate them. Doesn't work in the way that she wants, but that's what she's trying to do. Why can't I have a bond? Have all my medical records? And we remember, medical records is specifically something her lawyer mentioned in the hearing that had Sarah Boone's handwritten notes on them. And we're starting to get into her fatal flaw already here in bullet point 3, where you want to use your best arguments with a judge. And she probably doesn't know that. Obviously, she's not trained as a lawyer. So she's throwing literally every argument she has in every single letter that she has. But if you have one or two really good arguments, like my lawyer's not talking to me, it doesn't seem like she has that argument with this lawyer. But in the past, her best argument to me was always, my lawyer's not talking to me, won't meet with me. I have detailed records about how I've tried to call. Cell phones don't work. I had an investigator try to reach out. Can't get him. That's a good argument. Stick to your good arguments, because when you throw everything up against the wall, you have the option of a fatal flaw occurring like this, where you say something that the judge knows is not true. You have seen at least some of your medical records. So once the judge starts to see that some of what you're saying might not be true, you lose credibility for all future arguments. And when you have 100 arguments, it's hard for the judge to tell what is your major problem. Same thing we talk about like in appellate briefs. Have all my digital evidence and discovery. Have all my paperwork. This is all, why can't I? My paperwork, I don't know what that says. Letters, pictures, everything of mine returned by the former attorneys. Why can't I speak to my investigator? Have a completed download of my phone? Have any of my witness lists? Give any insight, understanding, clarification, truths about my case, especially to my attorney? Like that. We know that that's not true. We know it's not true that you can't give any insight, understanding, or clarification to your attorney. We know that's just blatantly false, which again, hurts the credibility for the rest. Even if we haven't read all the other letters, just for this one, it makes it hard to believe the rest. Be listened to by anyone, especially my attorney. Again, probably not true. Now, it doesn't mean she's going to agree with everything you say. It doesn't mean she's going to do everything you say, but is she even listening to anything you have to say? Of course, she's at least listening to some of it. Why can't I be respected for who I am truly? So who I am truly is very vague and difficult for somebody to understand. And somebody does not have to agree with or be respected for the way you think you are if they think differently of you, especially by a new attorney, and not be disrespected for the mutated, maybe malicious murderer all the world has falsely and correctly created and believed me to be? Why can't I be treated fairly, lawfully, and protected by the justice system? Why can't I properly, rightfully, completely defend myself? Why can't I see and know all the same as the world can and does? Again, here she is shouting out to everybody paying attention to this case, everybody here listening, reading this, watching her interrogation. Why does everybody else get to know more than she does, including my attorney, from all the phenomenal, non-permissive amount of my entire case being available online globally before my trial? And something, and most important, before I have seen myself. Why doesn't anyone know already about my case? How about my side in everything, about everything, be correctly understood, that I am not the problem for reasons I am on something appointed by the court attorney number 8. It's not her fault, she's saying. See my letter 7/21/23. That's when she goes through all the reasons she lost these attorneys and it not being her fault. Say what I want and should, but all the world can and say it all wrong and warped. So here's the issue with this last thing. If she really was losing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now 8 attorneys by no fault of her own, that is a problem. That could be violating constitutional rights, and the court definitely has to appoint another lawyer. The interesting part is, I think it's well documented that it's not her fault. So therefore, at least some of which is her fault. And I think what's going to be really important for this attorney and every attorney, if there are more in the future, is the record needs to be properly documented as to what Sarah Boone has done wrong, what she has done to cause these problems. And it gets sticky because there's confidential, private, privileged conversation between her and her lawyer, but not what she puts in the public documents. This is not privileged. This is not confidential. So we need to make sure, as the judge and the lawyers in this case, to properly document the record, so it's not going to be an appellate issue later that she was not provided effective assistance of counsel. We didn't give her the same appointed counsel that we give everybody else in this country, and that she is the one ruining these relationships, not the attorneys. At least some of them, right? Some of them can be the attorney's fault, but if she's blown 2, 3, 4 relationships, then it's her fault that she may end up with an appointed attorney she doesn't like or representing herself in the end. All right. Why won't my attorney give me an honest answer? We know that's not true. Maybe she doesn't agree with all the answers. Maybe she thinks some of them aren't true, but some of her answers at least are honest, right? Show me everything she says she has and finished reviewing for my case, but withholds from me after I ask repeatedly for and about. Why won't my attorney give me an answer other than I'm putting this to rest? That's not necessary, or I'm not having this conversation with you. So I got to be honest. I have heard many attorneys, including my dad and even myself, in some criminal cases, when certain criminal defendants really want to keep going over the same point over and over and over again, and you realize it's either not credible or not going to make a difference or not as important as they think it's going to be, and you have to use your time wisely, especially if they're in custody. And so sometimes you do have to say, listen, that's it. That's the end of the conversation on this point. We need to move on. They don't like it, but if they trust you, and that's sometimes the difference with court-appointed counsel, but if they trust you, usually they'll allow you to move on. Why won't my attorney grant me access to anything I asked her for in and about my case? Like the detectives in my case, stop putting words in my mouth. So she said her attorney's putting words in her mouth like the detectives. Well, that's the problem with the recording, the body cam, the interrogation, all of that being recorded. We hear the words that come out of your mouth. Tell me what's going on in my case. It's been well over 100 days. She has been my attorney, and I still do not know anything. Or ongoing 5 years. Again, that's really hard to believe with this attorney based on, again, what you don't hear in here is Sarah Boone saying this attorney's not visiting me, not calling me, not contacting me, not talking to me. You don't hear that complaint. So you know she is. And by the way, this attorney, like a lot of the other attorneys, represent a lot of different clients who don't have this complaint about her. So that makes it even more difficult to find these issues credible from Sarah Boone. Answer any of my questions. Ever ask me any questions? How can she supposedly know everything she needs to know from what she's been told, heard, read, and seen? Why can't my attorney reassure they're on my side for me, not against? So she wants more reassurance and kindness from her attorney. Why have I already been judged in the court of public opinion? How did that happen? Not your attorney's fault. That happens in lots of cases, right? That's something we happen to do on this channel, is cover cases sometimes before they go to trial. And we try to stop people from making their decision. We try to hold off people from making their prejudgment calls before trial. But guess what? What's a common theme we see in basically every case? The public's going to do the public, right? They're going to be the public. They're going to make their opinions. Some of them will change. Some of them will hold off. A lot of you that watch these cases and follow them, you will hold off until you see all the evidence, even though you start to feel a certain way based on the evidence you see, especially when it's literally recordings of stuff like in this case that's hard to argue with, but we still try to presume people innocent and wait till the trial. But guess what? Nobody can control what the court of public opinion is going to say. We can control what gets out there sometimes, but not how people will react. Why have I been sentenced by anticipation and condemned before my predicted trial? Why does my attorney and all the world think my case is already over? So this is telling. Why does my attorney think the case is already over? That's not helping her in the court of public opinion. That her attorney, who's reviewing all the documents, records, videos, and pictures, thinks her case is already over? Is her attorney trying to talk her into a plea deal? Is her attorney trying to talk her into an affirmative defense, meaning I admit that I put him in the suitcase, but I did it because of battered spouse syndrome or something else? Is that what's been the conflict on other cases? Are we getting to read between the lines here a little bit and learn more about this case than we may have thought before? Your Honor, during our first introduction at my last withdrawal of court-appointed attorney number 7, Hobson, you stated to me your uninvolvement with any of my letters I write. I am still going to write my letters as cordially they are to the world where all my potential jurors are located, and this is the only way anyone, including yourself, knows the very reason or necessary insight to my continued disadvantages, hindrances, impediments I am still experiencing on top of all the new spurring, is that the news? Spurring my intentions to write. So what does she say here? This is some new insight. She is admitting that she is using these letters that are, supposed to be to the court and to the judge. She's using them to talk to the world. She wants the world to see. She wants all of her potential jurors to see her side. And it's an interesting thought, right? If she thinks she's got nothing to lose and everybody's against her anyway, she might as well write these letters for her fans or people that do believe her. I don't think it's the worst strategy. I know a lot of you guys might disagree with me, but she's pretty cooked in the court of public opinion. If you look across what everybody kind of thinks about this case or thinks they know. So if she's going to convince one person, a half of a person, maybe more than one person, then maybe it's worth it, because I think there's already kind of a negative perception of her. Now, you could say that these letters are solidifying people's negative perceptions and maybe making it worse for her potentially, which is possible. But we're seeing in Kohberger skilled lawyers that people seem to think very highly of starting to unseal documents, starting to want to have hearings and present evidence and experts in front of the world, in front of the public, to have it streamed globally. And I believe at least part of it is for the world to see their side, for potential jurors to not only see the negative, but also see some of the positives about their case. Maybe she's taking notes. Maybe she sees what's going on with Kohberger. The race to the pulpit is unfair, and it is important to me that you are aware and understand what transpires when the news cameras are off and we're all in between my status hearings. 2, as so many of the advantageous embezzlers, racketeers, and mindless lemmings and just altogether mean people can use their freedom of speech, not knowing me in any way other than what's being said by all the other mean people and being said incredibly incorrectly, so can I. So she's saying, you guys can talk about it. Guess what? So can I. As the compelling, annoyed detectives in my case, Kopsel had to falsely falsify documents, and Lowen were his gun for me to see. I am sure you are familiar with, after watching all my plastered, highly misconstrued, over 30 million views just on one site interviews, and in which they both repeatedly attempted to feed me their incorrect, incomplete, hypothesized opinion by stating to me, everyone has their limits at this seemingly endless point of perpetually of nonsense and lawlessness still growing. and I very much want to advance to the next level after ongoing 5 years now. A genuine concern limit has been reached. So she's saying they put words in her mouth, they coerced her. Again, that's all on video. If that's the truth, she should be able to argue that, and a jury's going to be able to look at the video and see, what did I see? What did they think? How was she acting? Did she seem like someone who's being coerced? Why am I still not being included in my case? I mean, that's a joke. I don't know very many cases where the judge looks and asks the criminal defendant if they have anything they want to say. She's at all or most of her hearings. She's writing letters to the judge. I think she's involved in her case. How much more of my case and self is being added hourly, especially after their letters get loose to the internet? After this letter, gets loose to the internet, increasing the mass infection and destruction of my hopes to have a fair trial. Anything fair, my side foremost, and wondering now if my attorney drank the punch like everyone else. She thinks her attorney might be biased by the media attention. By the way, it's interesting how she complains about these letters getting loose and people misusing them when she says she knows she's writing them to her global audience. Again, that's inconsistent. All aforementioned reasons and so many more for this letter to be written, hoping to deter some of the unfair, one-sided finger pointing and corruption and malpractice being directed at me only by those in the justice system who are trying to deflect the shame and shock from me fearlessly challenging the status quo. And it must be so because it's in my face on the computer at the same time on my boob tube television, brainwashed, ignorant followers of disbelief, conformity, and greed, trying to unsuccessfully to make my life by character assassination seem worse than theirs. No, two, when anyone points their finger, one, it's impolite, and two, three, point back at you. The old one pointing at you, three pointing back at me. How many tried to see? So again, this is her trying to guilt people, trying to blame people, trying to, say people are out to get her. It's so unfair. She's bucking the status quo. She's the only criminal defendant to have these complaints, which again is not true. Put the stone down, as there will be no casting of anything today, except maybe for the role of my part for all the pre-conclusioned documentaries and crystal ball real life stories of true crime incorrectly formulated from everyone supposedly knowing me and judging who they think I am and what really happened as is going too futuristically. So what I will say is something I think you guys were right about from the jump that I didn't necessarily feel until now. I kind of think she may like this. I think she may like this attention, even if it's negative. I think she wants documentaries and true crime stories to be told about her. That's the vibe I'm trying to get. And I think she wants this pretrial publicity to last as long as possible, which I did not think at first. I thought she did want to go to trial. I thought she was confident in her case. I'm starting to change my feeling on that. I didn't agree with her confidence in the case, but I thought she was confident. Remember the 3-point back when you point your finger. Soothsaying is not a real job. To sum it up, in the words of my attorney after I told her to Google me, so she's saying my attorney is drinking the punch, my attorney is biased because of all this negative attention, and then you, Sarah Boone, told her to Google you. She stated, there's a lot. To sum it up, in the words of myself, the defendant stated to my attorney after she stated to me, when can I see? How much longer do I have to wait? Or how many attorneys must be withdrawn for me to be included in my case and be included more than the world presently is? This is my case in every respect. See all my aforementioned ongoing 5 years of questions. I am still waiting on for answers. Also, I want to make it known I walked out on my attorney in our last meeting due to her unwanted, uninformative, unprofessional, snotty attitude and her untruthful answers to my questions and beyond. The something vicious circle, I think that's an inappropriate word. We enter everything we need is a waste of time. And I'm saying that being in jail with supposed endless amounts of it, how she treats me is extremely prejudiced, hostile, and unconcerned. So this last paragraph, along with most of the letter, is a major problem for any attorney. To say that she's lying to her, uninformative, not telling her things, disrespectful, mean, etc., etc., that is irreconcilable differences. We are getting to irreconcilable differences at this point that the attorney just cannot move forward with. She is frustrating. One, to balk or defeat in every endeavor, to introduce feelings of insecurity, discouragement, and dissatisfaction in, and to bring to nothing. So much I presented my solution in order to coexist with and work together in a hopeful, progressive, positive, appropriate manner. So this is something Sarah Boone implemented in her and her attorney's meetings. I'm just picturing myself being there. Sarah Boone added a pretend judge to our interactions so the attorney could calm down and ease up on her condescension, offensive demeanor, and obvious prejudgment. Again, these are what you call irreconcilable differences. She seems like everyone else not to remember I am innocent until adjudged otherwise. I can guarantee you she understands that, but that doesn't mean she thinks you're going to win. Just because you're presumed innocent. We remember a lot of cases that we've said, presumed innocent, wait till it goes to trial. Doesn't mean we think they're going to win. She threatens me as if I am not, she treats me as if I am not. Imagine having a client say there's a pretend judge. I'd be like, ma'am, there's not a pretend judge, or we wouldn't be able to have these conversations. I wouldn't be as candid in front of you about how bad your case is in front of a pretend judge. Like, that's not how this works. There's a reason that we have private conversations, and what you say in front of the judge is not privileged. It's hard to get clients to understand that sometimes. After my introduction and explanation with pretend judge in the room or on the phone, I am trying to help her understand how she is making herself extremely unwelcoming. I can tell you that usually doesn't go over well with lawyers. Maybe it should. Maybe there should be some more humility, but that would be very frustrating. When in front of a real judge and in the court room is how she should treat me, her client, at all times. It's not the same, though. I should not have to invent pretend judge in order to be, and am not at all wrong for wanting to be respected. No matter the outcome, I am innocent until adjudged otherwise. My attorneys, everything should be fair, unbiased, trustworthy, honest, supportive, informative, protective, automatically and effortlessly. Oh, that's not true. It takes a lot of effort sometimes to give grace, to be patient, to give respect, especially with certain difficult clients. I should feel secure, highly confident, proud in her representing my life. I do not, and again, highly confident, again, that's just not, the facts are what the facts are. I do not, and have said to her many times regarding her monumental disbelief in me and my case, which I can't believe, contributes greatly to her something attitude towards me. I am hoping by this letter, she will pick up the sword of injustice and fight. The sword of justice and fight is what it should be. Alongside, not against me, and so many unmotivated, overwhelmed, weak attorneys prior who believed something ungracefully. Who bowed out ungracefully and crept away from the battlefield unsuccessful. The way that she speaks about people is so disrespectful and condescending and narcissistic. Do we think she understands that? It is not easy to work with anybody, let alone somebody in her position, when they treat you this way. I would be shocked at any private counsel that would willingly take up this case. My case equals bizarre, equals unknown, equals different, equals ignorance, equals misunderstood, equals unfair. This does not mean my case can't equal success, and in more way than one. While everyone continues to ring their bells of malevolence, I am ringing mine of hope, honor, plausibility, boldness. Listen, I am not a murderer. The justice system should be fair, should equal fair, faith, trust, respect, innocent until and if adjudged otherwise. 3-point back, Sarah Boone. Confused cat meme. Yes, thank you. All right, that's letter 1. We're going to read letter 2 here. So take your bathroom break if you need it. Hit the like button if you haven't. And here we go. June 4th, video visit, 12 minutes. So now it's not long enough. And she complains about the video visit. So how long do you want it to be? In addition to my previous letter intended for hand delivery on 6/7 and my status hearing, today my attorney made a video visit to go over everything I have been asking her to go over and have sent to her personally in 2 letters, all on the public video visitation box, where on both sides of me, less than 5 inches away from my visit, other inmates were having their visits also. I have explained to my attorney numerous times previously in writing and verbally that despite the noise level, I do not in any way feel comfortable having in-depth private meetings regarding my entire criminal case on the visitation box where there is no privacy whatsoever and held in an open bay dorm with something more than 62 other interested all ears inmates. So she thinks all ears are on her. Everybody's paying attention to her case. Maybe it will be because it's a high profile case. Here's what I'll say to this. This is a legitimate complaint. If she feels like it's not private and everybody can hear their conversations, then it could lack privilege and somebody could say she was speaking too loudly to expect it to be privileged. If that's the case, the court, the attorney, the bailiffs, the jail should step in and make sure she has a private communication with her lawyer. If that's not the case and she's just complaining to complain, she's got to be able to use these times to speak with her attorney, meet with her attorney, and go over her evidence. She can't have her cake and eat it too, saying she's not meeting with me, or when she does meet with me, it's not good enough. I can't fully participate, if at all, from the entire dorm, officer included, trying to participate also in my case. Now, if that's true, that's got to be fixed. As always, my attorney did not listen or care after I repeatedly tried reminding her of the unsecure environment, barking at me. I can listen or not, still going over speaking and not at all allowing me to respond. It sounds like you didn't want to respond. Again, this is having your cake and eating it too. After repeating to her over and over and over while she's beginning to speak louder and over me still to please schedule an in-person meeting where all can be discussed further privately with no success of being heard, I disconnected the visit telephonically. She uncooperatively, she is impossible. See previous letter or ask her for a copy of the 2 I sent her. I was trying to remedy or lessen before sending this to you, Your Honor, and not having to include. Now it's a race to the pulpit. So she thinks that her lawyer and her are going to race to see who can complain about the other one quicker. And she's saying, I tried not to involve you, Judge, but now I have to. And once again, all of this moves toward irreconcilable differences where her lawyer has to withdraw. She is setting it up to where her lawyer has to withdraw. At least some of this is on Sarah Boone's head and is her fault, regardless of what she says or thinks. And that's going to come into play when we talk about what the tough decision the judge has to take. My question, please, who acts like that and still be able to call themselves professional? You disconnected it. She tried to meet with you. Maybe she is frustrated because you're not allowing her to represent you. The visitation box is primarily for family and friends to connect. And if something from an attorney, reminders, notices, quick questions, not high-level confidential case information. She, like other former attorneys who always blame their dysfunctions on me. So it's not good for you, Sarah Boone, that all of your attorneys blame you and all of your attorneys are able to represent other clients. You don't like these answers I give you. What answers? See page 1, 2, and 3. All caps. I am not the problem. I want to and should be treated fairly with respect, acting more professional than the paid I've been doing this for 40 years professional, as if that has no clout, as if Sarah Boone's word means more than that. After so long and in all the experience, common courtesy, customer service, and listening skills should have been acquired. All attorneys, do you remember why you even wanted to be one? Remind yourself. We know, and it is protecting people's rights, and court-appointed counsel or public defenders have, even a higher calling to represent the people that can't otherwise be represented. So I get what you're saying, but there are lines for everyone. And if you cross those lines, all you're doing is cutting off your nose to spite your face. You should be higher. Sarah Boone, you should be working harder to try to work with these lawyers. You should appreciate someone with 40 years of experience who's won some trials, lost some trials, seen some things, and understands some things. You may not like what she says, and I'm not saying any lawyer is perfect or this lawyer is perfect, but you've been through 8, and most of them have come to the same conclusion that they do not want to represent you, that you are the problem. So we need some humility and self-reflection out of you. We really do. No one listens, and it works in everyone's favor but mine. How does it work in these lawyers' favor? Have you thought about that? What do they get from representing you and then withdrawing? They don't get anything. That I am the murderer, stuck in jail, so they can pin on me their uninterested, unmotivated, hopeless, they're going to leave me over her haughty attitude. I am not wrong for not thinking less of myself because everyone else has and does. This present attorney foremost. So each attorney gets worse than the last. The justice system expects me and other inmates, aka clients, to accept its sub-bar, nonchalant, hypocritical, next on the list attorneys. They keep aimlessly throwing darts for and appointing, playing. They don't withdraw. I have not fired any attorneys appointed in my case. That's also the frustrating part. In a civil case, if this was going on, a judge would be like, listen, you saying you can't trust and you hate your attorneys and they suck and they're treating you horribly and they're ineffective is you telling the court you need them gone. That's basically the same thing as firing an attorney. They're not your attorney to fire. They were appointed towards you. You realize you're not paying them, so it's hard for you to fire them. This is exactly what it looks like for you to fire them. Forcing the court's hand to make them withdraw. Forcing the attorney's hand to withdraw. Ipso facto is you firing them. So you can't just keep doing this and say, well, I'm not firing them. From me expecting the highest equal standards possible for wanting the absolute best outcome in my preposterous, mishandled case. And here we go. Here's the big ticket item. And representing myself is not an option, as both judges have now threatened me with, from being outspoken and intelligent in all my observations of the ongoing abuse I am and have experienced. She's saying they want me to represent myself because I'm so outspoken and intelligent. Narcissistic. I have no new experiences from it always being the same. Blame Boone. I refuse to be moved in waiting and wanting respect, no matter who everyone thinks I am. Clarity, inclusion, honesty, and professionalism. And another great reason not to have my case meetings on the public visitation box is my personal confidential inmate information, such as my visitation lists with names, etc., my interaction with inmates and officers, what I eat when, and my personal jail calls also being thrown online for what? To hate me more or try to get others to become or to because I don't eat breakfast or because I know some Latin, have short hair, my penmanship is nice, or because I'm not getting fat and sleeping all day, but rather fully applying myself, fighting still, making everyone upset from not having to fabricate something, splice, edit. The world apparently knows all. Very strange behavior and thoughts and comments on herself and what she thinks the world is doing and thinking and why they're doing it. What's next? How many times do I have to go, or how many times I go to the bathroom and what function I perform? No one knows anything, nor seems to want to from the beginning, from being comfortable in their corrupt and starting to be on top with ratings, websites, and money. My case details, if anyone forgot, and if you think about it, all that keeps getting plastered and plagiarized, posted, and poked fun at about me, it's all in my favor, proving myself right about all the mindless lemmings, shut-ins, the justice system advantageously abusing and profiting from everything in my case before my trial and before I've seen it. Please be sure to read my attachment. Okay, so here's what's in the next 40 pages. Florida Rule of Criminal Procedure Rule 3.22e, restricting disclosure. Am I the only one who thinks of these things? When can I win in anything? It's coming. I am not the problem. And if anyone were to slip on my sides, I don't know, is it slip? On my sides and have to experience, tolerate, deal with any of what I have and am, would bravely be doing if the same. Don't knock it till you try it. 3-point back, race to the pulpit. Again, the dramatics and theatrics in the way that she writes is like, oof, it's unbecoming in a situation like this. So what is the attachment? She hand wrote Florida Rule of Criminal Procedure 3.220. Oof. She starred certain ones. She also hand wrote clips from the Florida Constitution, the American Declaration of Independence, habeas corpus. I mean, she's just writing all this stuff, citing all this law, posting maps, publicity, exploitation, and saturation. It's wild. We can dig into it a little bit more if you guys want to, but those first two letters were the biggest part, most important part, biggest gist of where she's feeling, what she's thinking, how she thinks she can force the court to not let her represent herself. So what's the court going to do? The difficult decision before the court is, do I give her another lawyer or do I force her to represent herself? In my opinion, the court should give her one more lawyer and say, this is it. If you don't make it work with them and you complain about them and call them liars, you are then choosing to represent yourself. So it's your decision, Miss Boone. And hopefully she can work it out with that lawyer. But if not, she will represent herself and basically by her own choice. What's very difficult about this, we saw the Darrell Brooks case. Any of you that didn't watch, there's a playlist. You can go watch how crazy it was. If the judge forces her to represent herself and she just doesn't say anything, and she doesn't call any witnesses and doesn't ask any questions, what's the appellate court going to do? Because you can't force ineffective assistance of counsel. But if she told the judge she doesn't want to represent herself, she doesn't do anything to represent herself, and also didn't fire any lawyers, but they all withdrew, that's going to be an interesting situation. We don't want criminal defendants to do that. We don't want this to be a new process of them circumventing the system or being able to delay their case forever. But it does create interesting and difficult questions in the law. And I know most of you watching are going to say, this is easy. She is creating her own problems. She should have to live with it. And I get that. But we want this stuff to be fair. And I'll tell you, the state probably hates it. And this is not a complex case. 3, 4, 5 days is how long this trial is supposed to go. We need a lawyer that's just going to be able to get in there, represent her, make the arguments, get the job done, let the jury decide. Let them watch the videos. Tell me what you think the judge should do. I can't wait to read your comments on this one later. That's all we got. Until next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know.